Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi, everybody. And welcome
Look,
back.
look who's back.
Wait, it's this. So, my name is Dan. This is Aran. For all the new students joining us today. Hello. Hi, everybody. We're off to a good start today. Okay, so I hope everybody can hear us now. Yes, volume. So I was saying, my name is Dan. This is Aran. For all the new students joining us today, of which there are a few, welcome to the graduate program.
Yeah, we are the hardest part in the graduate environment.
Yes, by far. And I mean, intellectually, if that's even like a metric of difficulty. But what we have, do you know where the, oh, here it is. Okay, so what we're going to do today, so we have some new material to cover, and in fact, the new material is starting on page 618 with item 120. Item 120 out of 188 in the article, the preface to the Wisdom of Kabbalah, in the book Kabbalah for the Student. So that's the new material today. However, we do have, we should do a review, because that would be very mean to just go directly into this material. It's very technical, and we were just having a long discussion about it before the lesson to see how we can kind of convey it in the simplest possible way. And we came to the conclusion that there is no such way, so it doesn't matter. And we'll just do it as best we can. However, we can do a review.
Yeah, we'll give you a context. We're actually learning Ticha to the wisdom, like preface to the Wisdom of Kabbalah. We talk about how everything, all the reality descended from the moment of creation downwards. In this course, which we are actually like 4 months into, or no, 6 months into, I don't know, like, anyway, it's been a long time. We don't actually remember ourselves before doing this, before beginning this course. We have pictures from that time, but we actually don't remember ourselves. So this is a long course, in which we learned a new language, which is all the terminology in this course, and like all the basic principles and the laws that Baal HaSulam refers to. And you're actually joining us when we're starting to talk about the word of correction, which is a good point to join us, but it requires a lot of previous knowledge. So just before Dan starts the review, I'll say that if you find it a bit hard to understand or to grasp, or it sounds like Chinese or whatever, first of all, it's okay. Feel at home. Second, know that there is a more easier VOD kind of course in the graduate environment with Michael Leitman about this material. So it's okay, you know. It's like, I don't know how to say it, but feel comfortable. Just go with the flow. You can always join us from the beginning in the next session. We will start in like after we'll finish this, which is like 3 more months, 4 more months.
Yeah, it could be anywhere between 4 and 6 months, but it doesn't matter because it's not going to help.
Yeah,
it's going to sound exactly, even from the beginning, this sounds exactly the same.
Okay, that is the good cup, as you can see.
Yeah, don't worry. It sounds for thousands of years, people have been coming right into the middle of these articles, either, you know, if it's the modern articles or the Zohar or the Torah, you know, you always wake up in the middle of the cycle of study. So
yeah, it's like
you're joining a long tradition.
You like never join humanity in the beginning, you know. It's like beside Adam and Eve, you just like, or the first monkeys that get off the trees, you know, just like, whoops, we're in the middle.
Yeah, anyway. There's always some history. Like we used to live in that cave, but that was a really long time ago. Now we live in this cave. Okay. We don't talk about that cave anymore.
So I tried to be nice, Dan didn't, and that's it for the introduction. We'll do a review, and then we'll go into the new material, please.
Okay, so with an intro like that, we should probably start way back in the beginning with what are we even talking about? So this whole kind of course and section of Kabbalistic study, as we study it together, is more technical in the sense that it lays out like a set of kind of laws, or the sort of physics, if you will, of the upper spiritual world. So just like in our world, science, it's on its surface appears very technical until you internalize it, and then it becomes emotional, and then it becomes kind of intuitive. So that's part of one of the goals of this course, is that as the material, as we kind of like hear it over and over, and through just repetition and through thinking about it, introspection, it becomes more intuitive, and then it slowly passes into emotion, which is kind of the goal, to internalize and feel all of this. Okay, so what are we talking about? So we're talking about the development of all of creation, all of existence, kind of as we know it, from its initial state, as Kabbalists have discovered, up to our state and out through the final correction. Correction of what? Actually, why do we call it the final correction? Why isn't it just the conclusion or the ending or something? What has to be, what's broken that has to be corrected? So that's something that we'll talk about today. But let's start all the way back in the beginning. So in the beginning,
before the beginning, Irina is asking, is the 10 Sfirot course an easier version of Pticha? So it's like a course about Pticha or like in reference to Pticha. Pticha is actually the text itself. We're studying the text. Other courses like the 10 Sfirot or maybe on YouTube you saw all kinds of courses talking about the structure of the worlds. They are more about the text, like would you say that? Like taking principles from the text, taking the general process and explaining it in simpler words. So, but studying the Pticha is the hard text. Pticha is not the Zohar. There's a question about that. It's completely different text. Zohar was written by Rabbi Shimon and his students, and Pticha was written by Baal HaSulam. And Pticha is written by Baal HaSulam after he took all the writings of the Ari, interpret them in Talmud Eser Sfirot, what we call Tas. And after he wrote these 16 parts of Tas, all these volumes of Tas, like, how would you say, interpretation, not interpretation, perush, like, how would you say perush?
Commentary.
Yeah, like commentary for the writings of Ari. Then he took it all, zipped it up, and wrote it in his own words, and this is what we have as Pticha. Like a zip or like a introductory for the Tas. Okay, so this is about the context for that. Please, Dan, sorry again.
Okay, no problem, anytime.
Yeah, I'll feel free to interrupt you whenever I want.
Okay, good. So all the way back in the beginning. So in the beginning, there was only the upper light. Okay, this force, this benevolent force, the will to bestow, as it's called, or synonymously the creator. Okay, so the creator and the light is the same thing, and the creator is this force that Kabbalists have discovered is simply a force that wishes to bestow. It's the will, it's the desire to give. So this desire to give, so there are diagrams along the way just to make something, tangible, so that we can hold on to a little bit temporarily before we internalize this. And so we resemble this desire to give as coming from, as kind of emanating from above and expressing its desire to give down below. So for now, there's nothing to give to, actually. There's nothing to bestow to. There's nothing to give to in this complete primordial origin state. So the first thing the creator does is actually create a desire to receive, a will to receive, this abundance that this desire wishes to give. So this omnipotent, omniscient force does everything in its power to create perfectly its complement. So this complement we represent as a little vessel, and this vessel's characteristic continues to develop, and we'll talk about that in a second, all the way through the spiritual worlds, and then the spiritual worlds what's the word?
Cascading.
Yeah, mitkashmim.
מתגשמים,
Like
becoming corporal.
materialize. Yeah. You could say
yeah.
them. Okay, so thank you. The spiritual worlds materialize into what we know as the physical world, what we perceive today as a physical world.
Because Dan is not a native English speaker, sometimes I need to help him with the
it's
vocabulary. You'll see it along. It's part of the course.
So, so it materializes into what we perceive now as the world today, and our goal here, and the entire goal of the study of Kabbalah is to acquire the properties or the characteristics or the perceptions that will allow us to perceive eventually back up into the spiritual world and all the way back to the beginning, as Kabbalists before us have done. So, okay, back to this process. So what's going on? So now we're going through what are called the 4 phases of direct light. This is phase 0, which is the will to bestow. Phase 1 is the will to receive. So phase 0 has a name, it's called Keter. Phase 1 is called Chokhmah. What happens then? Briefly, since we've gone over this in earlier lessons and they're in the archive and you can watch them, the first phase, in being in contact and filled with this upper light, the same light, enters this will to receive, and this will to receive is now filled with this light, the abundance, and they're in perfect unison together. In being in proximity with this upper light, this will to bestow, the will to receive actually starts taking on its properties, and its property is the will to bestow. So the will to receive itself starts wanting to give back to the Creator. And this quality is called Binah. And in order to do that, the will to receive discovers that it has nothing to give, in fact. There's nothing that the will to bestow wants. There's no lack in the will to bestow. So the will to receive, after some back and forth, discovers that the way that it can give to the will to bestow is by actually receiving for the sake of bestowal. So instead, we're going to create a vessel that no longer just receives for its own sake, but in fact, it receives for the sake of bestowal. So for the sake of becomes the key here, and it's what we call intention. So it receives with the intention to bestow back. And this intention puts it into equivalence of form with the upper light. The upper light wishes to bestow, and this desire also wishes to bestow. This is phase 3, and we're going to call it Zir Anpin. Zir Anpin, and now this is the first time where it's actually where this will to bestow has come into almost back into touch with the will to receive, comes back in touch with the will to bestow, because now they're both doing the same thing. They both want to give, and in wanting to give, this desire actually, when you try to be more like somebody, you understand them through their actions. When you mimic somebody's actions, you begin to understand what the person is doing. At least that's how it's supposed to work. And in doing that, in that understanding, a new vessel is developed, phase 4, called Malchut, which is the true will to receive. This will to receive is special, and it's different. It's complete, and it's different from the kind of primordial will to receive, in that it has the intention to receive the abundance from the will to bestow, from Keter, but also now it understands what that is. Because before, this level of Chokhmah is simply, an infant just, receiving some milk from its mother, let's say, for example. So there's no intention, there's no sophistication, there's no understanding. The infant doesn't know how much love the mother has for it. But in Malchut already having gone through all these 4 phases, actually understands the magnitude of love that the creator, this force, this will to bestow, has for it. And it's that love now that Malchut wants to receive. Okay? So that was the 4 phases of direct light. So where does that leave us? So now that leaves us with Malchut. I guess we got to keep going all the way through our current material. Okay. So now what happens next? Okay, we're just going to charge forward. What happens next is that Malchut realizes that despite its best efforts, and this is, the same desire that's evolving throughout this whole process, this desire realizes that, wait a second, back here in Binah, my whole goal was to actually become like Keter, and Keter is bestowing. But here in Malchut, I see that I'm entirely receiving. Yes, I'm receiving the abundance, and yes, I'm receiving all the love of the creator and everything, and it's great, and I'm filled with the light. However, I'm completely opposite from the creator. And this is something that Malchut realizes as it goes through its own development process. So this is completely unacceptable, because the goal was to be one with the creator, and here I'm the opposite of that. I'm completely, I couldn't be more unlike the creator. So what do? So Malchut decides to restrict itself. It performs what's called the first restriction, or in Hebrew, Tzimtzum Aleph. Tzimtzum is restriction, and Aleph is first, like the first letter of the alphabet. Tzimtzum Aleph, and Malchut empties herself of any light. So this is Malchut of the world of restriction. Malchut restricted. Restricted. So from here, we kind of find ourselves in a similar position that we had back here, because Binah also didn't want to receive anything. Binah was completely empty. Binah forced all the light back out of herself, because she wanted to be like Keter. It was unacceptable for her that she was receiving for her own sake. She wanted to give. So rather than the desire to give was so strong that it overwhelmed any previous desire to receive. So here we are in a similar position. And what happened after Binah is that Binah realized that, wait a second, I can actually receive for the sake of bestowal, and created a concept called Zir Anpin, reception for the sake of bestowal. And Malchut is an evolution from that. And so after Malchut restricted herself, she actually, she already had this technology to be able to receive for the sake of bestowal. So Malchut restricted herself, and now can move forward to begin to kind of correct herself, because this is an uncorrected state, and bring herself back to having entirely the quality of the creator. So how does that work? So that works the following way. So we have a kli, a vessel, and this vessel is restricted. It's restricted by means of a screen. Draw it like this. This screen blocks the light that's trying to enter it. Why is light trying to enter it? Because the creator is the will to bestow, and the creator doesn't really care about all the complexes that the will to receive has about itself, about not receiving and not loving itself and whatever issues it has. The creator doesn't care. His job is like to just shove pleasure down the throat of this desire. And it's the desire's job to figure out how to do that, and how to adapt itself in a way to bring itself into balance with the creator. So the creator's light is always shining, and this light is called the direct light. And we say that it's always shining. Even now, in fact, even now as we sit here during this lesson, the creator's light is shining on us and trying to enter our kilim. But our kilim are restricted thanks to this restriction. This restriction and a subsequent restriction that we'll talk about in a second. So we have this direct light. Direct light. And So Malchut has this, this whole technology of receiving for the sake of bestowal. So it figures out that, wait a second, okay, so let me analyze this direct light. Let me see exactly what the creator is trying to give me. And we represent that analysis by returning light. This is called Or Choser, or returning light. Returning light. And this returning light serves a function of, we say that it actually clothes the direct light. So you can think of it as, an example of a host and a guest, where a guest comes to a host, and the host is pleading for the guest to enjoy, everything. Please make yourself at home. Can I offer you tea? Can I offer you this? Can I offer you that? And the guest is being very, very polite. No, thank you. I'm okay. I'm okay. The host now has this desire to give to the guest, and the guest is refusing to receive. This is the screen here that's refusing to receive. But the host continues to implore, and the host says, well, this isn't just any tea. I made this especially for you. I just heated up the water. It's the perfect temperature. I had this tea imported because I know exactly the kind that you like. And I got this special, whatever other stuff, sugar, milk, whatever you want to add to it. It's amazing. It's perfect. And this is all impacting the screen. And by continuing to kind of refuse this, then this intention to do this for the sake of the creator clothes the pleasure that the creator is trying to give. Eventually, this kli, or this vessel, says, okay, so I can take some of this. I'll do you a favor. Okay, sure, I'll have a cup of tea, no problem. Okay, I would love a cup of tea, thank you. And this whole taking of the cup of tea finally invites this pleasure of the tea, in this case, or this upper light, this abundance, into the vessel, and now the vessel has the ability to receive this pleasure inside of itself. This whole process is called a zivug dehaka'a. And we call it that because zivug is mating or coupling, and haka is an impact. So there's an impact happening here between the light and the screen, but there's also like a coupling happening between the light and the desire. Okay, so now we're past that. And then what happens? So, any questions?
No questions. But in the pace that you're moving now, we won't have time for new material.
Yeah, we won't.
Just saying.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to speed it up.
Just speed it.
All right, here we go. Double time.
Fast forward.
So what happens next? So now we have this. So now we have this. Now we know what a zivug is, and now we know how the creature can actually connect with the creator through this screen. What happens next is a whole bunch of these happen. So we're going to represent it this way. There's so the same vessel. Here's the screen. Here's the direct light. Here's the returning light. Here's the light that made it into the vessel. Here's the light on the bottom that didn't make it into the vessel because the creature or the vessel decided that, wait a second, okay, I can take the tea, no problem, but the steak is like a little bit too much for me, because if I eat the steak, then I'm actually going to be doing it for myself and not for your sake. So that's out of the question. So the inside of this new structure that we're creating here, because we're separating, this is the same structure as we have over here with the direct light and the screen. The part that is filled with desire, that is filled with the light, is called the toch. And the part that remains empty is called the sof. Next, toch, sof. Okay, hope that's clear. Great. Then what happens? then the light, since the creator continues to implore the creature to take more and more and more, the creature's like, so you come in and the host offers you a cup of tea and you're like, okay, fine. You know what? I've done my calculations. I can take the tea, but I'm not going to take the rest of the stuff. So you're sipping there, you're sitting there sipping on the tea and you're enjoying it. And the whole time the host is like, well, why don't you try this Danish? It's great. It's really good. And you're like, no, but I just want the tea. I can't handle the Danish. And they're like, yeah, but you don't know what this Danish is. This is like not just any Danish. This is like some crazy Danish that came from, this is fresh baked. I mean, I flew it in from, I don't know where, Madagascar or something. That's not where they come from.
Gluten-free.
Gluten. That doesn't make it more appealing.
It depends where you offer it.
Yeah. Anyway, so this constant pressure, this nagging pressure drives the guest or the creature in this case to back out of the whole thing. You go, you're holding a tea and you're like, you know what? I don't need the Danish, and really you can have the tea back because this whole thing is just getting way too complicated for me. So the screen that originally descended to allow this tea in has now decided that, you know what, it's better, instead of having all this pressure from all sides, it's better that I just not receive anything at all. That would be ideal for me. So I don't have to deal with this constantly. But however, you're still standing there, right? I mean, the existence is still there, the creature is still there, the creator is still there, you're still in the house, the tea is still there, the Danish is still there, the steak is still there, everything is still there.
Then fast forward.
This process repeats. I'm 100% with you. I also want to.
No, they understood everything is there.
Everything is there.
Next.
Okay. This process repeats. Actually, we're almost there. I think in a minute and a half we can do it. This process repeats once. This process repeats again. Another zivug daka. And what's happening here is that we're forming connections with the creator. First I try, my attempt to get as much as possible. And then I give up. And then I try again. And then I give up. And then I try again. And then I give up. But throughout this entire process, I'm building discernments that allow me to understand better the nature of the creator. On this third discernment, I discover that on the way out, as I'm releasing this abundance, I can actually, in that process, go and start interacting with the kilim that I left behind the first time. So let's label these guys. Now, this is called a partzuf, and its name is Galgalta. This is named Ab, and this is named Sag.
Partzuf is just Partzuf in Hebrew is face, and it means a certain manifestation of the will to receive towards the creator, meaning that all states in reality, all reality is built from pixels. Each pixel is a form of the creator that is being received by the will to receive. So when we want to say about a certain how would you say, manifestation, I don't know what, like a certain attitude, a certain relation between the light and the vessel, between the creature and the creator, we call that a partzuf. It's like a face, it's like how you recognize the state. So actually, each one of the lights that Dan drew is called a partzuf, and the partzuf means will to receive with an intention to bestow, otherwise it has no connection to the creator. So will to receive with an intention to bestow, meaning a desire with the screen, is called the partzuf. And it reveals a certain portion of the upper light of the creator. Sorry about that.
No, please. Okay, so, wow, there's a lot of material here. I can see why it takes us so long to get here.
Yeah,
it took us like 6 months to get here. So, okay, so what starts happening is that actually there's a pattern repeating here. Galgalta represents Keter, Ab is Chokhmah, and Sag is Binah. And remember that Sag is the will, and that Binah is the will to bestow. Back here, Binah is the will to bestow. So we have Galgalta, Ab, and Sag is Binah, the will to bestow, and that allows it to actually come over here and start interacting with these Kilim of Galgalta, the ones that Galgalta was like, no way. Back then, I couldn't even handle, whatever it was. There's no way I can have like a steak or something. So Binah, this attempt to bestow, this pure desire, starts interacting with these Kilim, and it kind of sort of mingles with them, if you will. And this mingling generates Arishimo. Arishimo is like a piece of data. So throughout this entire process, up and down, the light, all of this mingling, every single action that happens is stored somewhere as a memory of the past, because if you don't remember the past, you're doomed to repeat it. And we don't repeat the past here because we remember it perfectly. And Arishimo is actually stored as extra light that's shining for the vessel. So Arishimo is light. And so Arishimo acts as part of the input now of the creature, because the creature is like, just like we are in this world, we have some input, we have like whatever situation we're in, and we respond to it in the best possible way that we can, to our benefit, egoistically. Usually we try to do our best, but we work in a certain set of conditions.
Yeah, you have some models like try to understand that Dan is trying to zip in like a material of half a year into like so it's pretty shallow, but just like in our world, you can refer to the self or a person that is being carried by his protein body as a combination of something like a memory, motivation, awareness, some kind of reflection, that out of it he rationalized or she rationalized their own actions. So you have something very similar here. So the motivation is like the desire in each state, the memory is like the shimo that came from, and what you are operating now is some kind of the awareness that you gain, or like the light that you gain through this process. So it's not the same here at all. We don't talk about the materialized world. It's way before our corporal reality is even created. But still, you have here similar models, just to give you some kind of flavor in that. Okay.
All right. So so Sag, in purifying its masach back up to its rosh, is able to descend down below the tabur and interact with the kilim of the Sof of Galgalta. In doing so, Sag goes, whoa, I can't use those kilim. I need to restrict them. They're kilim of reception, and I'm not interested in doing that. I'm only interested in bestowing for the sake of the creator. I don't have the strength to be able to bestow to those kilim. I can only bestow to the half of the kilim, let's say, or 2/5 of the kilim. So I'm going to restrict this whole deal, and I'm going to just slice this in half like this. I'm going to make a new division called the parsa that separates the kilim of bestowal from the kilim of reception. And I'm going to do this by raising my masach from the peh in my rosh up to the nikvei naim. Okay, so I'm not going to go into detail what that means because it's just too much. Yeah. But we'll talk about it a little bit more.
But yeah, just to say it like this, each parzuf, meaning each relation between the creature and the creator, is built out of two main parts. The rosh is like head in Hebrew. It means the part that does the calculation, the planning, is like the potential, it's like the force, and then you have the body, the guf. And the guf is the realization. It's the practical implementation of what was planned in the rosh. So in the beginning, when Dan talked about the Danish or the T, the Rosh did a calculation on all the kelim it had. So we refer to that the screen, the masach, stood in the place of the peh, which in Hebrew is the mouth. And then also in the body, it implemented it in all of its vessels. And now, after the second restriction, after the additional restriction, the masach, we say that it rises in the rosh from the peh to nikve anayim. Like, how do you say, holes of the eyes? Like,
I think they're pupils.
pupils.
But it's
not the pupils. It's
sockets.
Yeah, it's like the sockets.
Dan was saying sockets.
Linda, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear?
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
we can hear each other.
I think their internet
Okay.
was having problems. You could see it in the connection.
Okay, so you can hear us.
Oh, there they are.
Yes, woohoo!
I think the second restriction was too much for the internet here. so it just broke down. Yeah, it was an overload of information, but we won't give up, we'll just keep on going until they crash us again, and then we'll rise again. We're like the phoenix, how do we call it, like the phoenix, yeah? Okay, good. Please, Dan, continue.
Okay, so where were we?
Wait, I hope the internet is ready. Okay, here we come. If
Okay,
it crashes again, it's like too bad.
So we're finishing up our review, and we're just looking at this whole process with these parts of theme, like the expressions of this will to receive, the creature, its expressions of trying to come closer to the creator. And what happened here? So Sag, Bina, came down here, kind of mingled with the Sofa Vilgalta, realized that there are some kilim here that it can bestow to, and some that it cannot. So it restricted the ones that it cannot, and it did that by moving its masach from its peh up to its nikveh einayim, in its rosh. So it says, okay, I'm only going to use my kilim of bestowal and not my kilim of reception. So I'm going to restrict not only, up until now, I have been receiving in order to bestow. So I'm going to restrict that completely. And from now on, I'll only be bestowing in order to bestow. That'll be my only interaction with the creator. And up here is the region of bestowing in order to bestow. And this is receiving in order to bestow. And down here is receiving in order to receive, which is us. This the intention to receive is down here, completely outside of the scope of spirituality. So what happens next? So what happens next? Again, we make this attempt to connect to the creator, and so Sag emanates another parzuf that, continuing in this same vein. It still has some leftover desires to manifest. So it emanates another parzuf called Katnut of the world of Nikudim, which is fine. And afterwards it says, how does it go from Katnut to Gadlut? Well,
Your audio's gone.
לא שומעים אותנו.
Can you hear? So let us know when you can hear us, maybe. Oh, good,
Okay.
good, great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So Sag emanates a small parzuf based on this, a parzuf that only bestows for the sake of bestowing. No problem. It's all good. And after doing this, the kind of the recollection of what happened here comes back up, and it says, well, I kind of handled this reasonably well. Maybe I'll be able to bestow to these vessels, because I have to move forward. I can't just leave these empty, because this is the part of creation. This is like the real, like the meat of creation. These are the coarsest,
the meat of the Danish,
the coarsest vessels that there are. And it's the creator wants me to have these. It's like in the Garden of Eden with the apple and everything, the snake was like, the creator wants you to have these. So Sag is like, okay, no problem. So I'm going to fill this also. So I'm going to emanate another parzuf, but this time it's going to fill all of those kilim. And this is Gadlut of the world of Nikudim. And, just like every time we, go back on a decision that we've tried to make in the past, everything just explodes in a very predictable way. And so this whole thing blows up. This blows up because all of the kilim down here, it turns out, actually, we didn't have the strength to be able to receive them for the sake of bestowal, and it counteracted this whole Tzimtzum Aleph thing. So Tzimtzum Aleph was this triggered Tzimtzum Aleph, and Tzimtzum Aleph kind of took over, and all of these kilim broke. So the whole breaking process was like a few weeks ago. It took a few lessons to go over it, but suffice it to say that all of these guys are now broken. All of these kelim break. And now it's up to us to fix them. So this is the world, I'm going to label it the world of Nikudim. Both of these together, which is now shattered and broken. This is called the world of Nikudim. Now what? Now we're almost done with our review. We're getting very close to, we're actually almost there, to our new material, which is going to start on page 618, item 120. All right, so the world of Nikudim is now broken. Broken. These kelim are broken. What does it mean that they're broken? It means that the screen that they had on them that was keeping them alive in spirituality, this intention to bestow to the Creator, has been annulled, because we see that the kelim are not fit for serving that purpose. The screen doesn't cover them. So the whole screen shatters and the kelim fall down and they die. Spiritual death means losing the intention to bestow and being left with the intention to receive. All right, so this happened, by the way. This happened in the Rosh. So that was Katnut, and just to illustrate what happened in the Rosh is we have the Rosh came back down here to Gadlut, during Gadlut, and it broke. Okay, so that's Katnut and that's Gadlut. Now, I think that's actually it.
Okay, we have a question from Efrain. I hope I pronounce your name correctly. Does the Masach grow as part of the